name is Gabriel Snyder, and I'm here to talk to you all about something that many of us love, the ocean. So, the ocean is super important for both humans as well as obviously the marine life that relies on it. Us humans, we rely on the ocean for many things, whether it be food, energy, jobs, travel, all types of resources. But then also we rely on the ocean to be a carbon sink, meaning that it can mitigate a lot of the effects of climate change. So the ocean is obviously very, very important. And for these reasons, it needs to be our top priority as far as protecting it and the marine life that relies on it. Marine biodiversity is incredibly important because each and every aquatic organism has its own unique role to fulfill. Biodiversity is, simply put, the variety of life in a habitat or an ecosystem. From controlling prey populations to engaging in symbiotic relationships, each and every organism has that unique role to play, and without them, others in their ecosystem would also be affected. A very popular example to demonstrate this is the kelp forest ecosystem and the food web of this ecosystem, which you can see pictured right behind me. So the kelp forest ecosystem it promotes biodiversity. It is really important, and it's home to over 1,000 different aquatic species. The growth of algae is a major threat to these kelp forests because excessive growth could mean that the algae is actually outcompeting the kelp, which could decrease the kelp in that ecosystem. So to combat this, sea urchins, as pictured right here, will decrease the amount of algae in the ecosystem to make sure that this does not happen. So by decreasing the amount of algae through consumption of it, sea urchins are benefiting the ecosystem. However, even sea urchins can have a negative impact on the ecosystem if their population grows too large. For example, as you can see in this image right here, if there are too many sea urchins, they will consume too much of the kelp, and then you have a great issue here because now the kelp forest can no longer be the home of that 1,000 organisms that I was talking about. So you have right here our friend the sea otter, which their job is to make sure that the population of sea urchins does not grow too large so that the kelp can continue growing and continue to thrive, as well as the organisms that rely on that kelp. Without the presence of any one of these organisms, the kelp forest ecosystem would not be able to survive. This ecosystem is a perfect example of the importance of biodiversity and how each and every organism plays its own role and allows not only the ecosystem but all the organisms within it to thrive. Something else that I have not mentioned in great detail yet, but that is incredibly important, is that the fisheries and aquaculture sectors are the source of income for hundreds of millions of people. A decrease in biodiversity would not only be harmful for these organisms that I was just talking about, but also for all of these people and their families who rely on them for their income. Now that I've gotten to talk a little bit about what marine biodiversity is, why it's important, why we should care, I want to talk about how humans are negatively impacting it. So, right behind me, I have a plastic water bottle. A plastic water bottle is something that you've all probably used, and if you haven't, it's something that you've seen others use because it's a very common object. So let's think for a second, what is the life cycle of a plastic water bottle? It is purchased, used for a minimal amount of time until it's finished, and then thrown away. And you might now be thinking that since it's plastic, it is recycled and reused, and so it's all okay. However, this is almost never true, as only about 9% of plastics are ever actually recycled. Where do the rest end up? They end up in landfills, or in worst case scenario, they'll end up in the ocean. There has been a drastic decline in marine biodiversity, and one of the leading causes is plastic pollution. Scientists estimate that about 8 million metric tons of plastic enters the ocean each and every year, and far too often, that plastic water bottle that I just showed you ends up not in a recycling bin, but here, in one of these garbage patches, one of many that is pictured behind me, and that can have very negative effects on aquatic organisms. And this plastic, once it's in the ocean, does not break down. It causes harm to many aquatic organisms if they consume it thinking that it's food or become entangled in it, as you can see right here in this image. So what's the solution to this growing problem, you might ask? Banning single-use plastics. This is a solution that has been proposed in courts all around the world, and as I've just shown you, is one that is necessary to save our oceans. Banning single-use plastics will force people to use more environmentally friendly and sustainable alternatives rather than relying on these plastics, which will then greatly decrease the amount of plastic which will end up in our oceans. So what can we all do to help? We can use reusable bags and bottles instead of relying on plastic ones, and if we do use plastic, we want to make sure that we're recycling it to not contribute to the issue of plastic pollution. Another thing that you could do, which would have a very large impact, is writing to your local legislators in order to influence legislative change. In this way, we could ban single-use plastics and create a better future. Although this issue is a significant one, with hard work and cooperation, we can all come together to make a difference. Thank you.